Oh, hi, Mark. I just recorded this damn video. I just recorded this video. And it didn't save. I don't know why it didn't save, but it didn't save. So I'm going to recreate this shit as best I can. Other than I'm in another room, the lighting is somehow shittier. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. My camera quality is ass. You know, I haven't recorded a video in a while. You know? So, it's always really unsettling when I turn back on the camera and I see how just how shit the video quality is. Like, it surprises me every time that I turn on my camera and I think I'm watching the Blair Witch Project and then I just realize it's my fucking camera. It saddens me deeply. But I can deal with it. In case you were wondering, I know you weren't, but in case you were, I'm currently drinking/eating a Daly's frozen cocktail. This is the peach kind. It's like peach, orange, cranberry or some ridiculous shit like that. It's delicious. I just had a strawberry daiquiri one while I was shooting this Salo review, actually. And then the Salo review didn't save, so you guys won't see me eat the strawberry daiquiri one. Not that I imagine there are too many of you out there going, ah, shucks. Really hoping to watch this random guy sit around in his underwear eating a frozen strawberry daiquiri. I know. I'm terrible. I should have had 2 of them. Unfortunately, I don't have another one in the freezer. By the way, this right here, don't drink it. It tastes like, well, just think like if AIDS was a beverage. Anywho, now I think I'll get into the review. Which, again, I just shot. I'm not going to stop being pissy about that. Salo, 120 Days of Sodom, is directed by, I don't know, some guy with a super Italian name. Paolo... There's a Palo in there. There's definitely a Palo in there. Pasolini or something. I think, pretty sure he got murdered right after this movie got released. I'm not entirely sure of the whole story behind that. But I guess people were pissed off because of the graphic nature of the film. Alright, so I guess I should start giving my opinion on it. Which, by the way, that's what these movie reviews are. I'm not a professional. I know very little about film. But I guess I'll just start out with saying I think because I want to give some positives to this movie. I think this movie has some disturbing bits in it. Some of it does feel very disturbing. It is very disturbing looking. Very disturbing looking. What's happening is what's disturbing. It's not the way the movie looks. Speaking of the movie, the way the movie looks, the movie was shot decently, I suppose. The sets were okay. You know, nothing looked like shit except, you know, except the shit. I've heard that a lot of people remember this movie as the movie where they eat poop. And I can totally see that because that's a solid third of the movie. Alright. So, let's stick with the positives. Stick with the positives. Like I said, it's rather disturbing. They make these characters do some disturbing things. They treat them very degradingly. I don't know if that's a word. They're really fucked up people doing some really fucked up things. And of course, it makes it all the more disturbing that all of their victims are children. Sort of. But wait, no. Stick with the positives. Stick with the positives. Some of the acting was good. It was. Mostly from the antagonists. I felt like the acting was pretty solid, especially the bearded guy. I don't know that we get any of their names. If we do, I don't remember it. I really didn't take note of any of their names or any of their characters or their character traits or whatever. I mean, a couple of them you kind of have to take note of their character traits because they got some very blaring character traits. Now, the negatives, because I'm going to keep it a buck with you boys. There wasn't a ton positive about this movie. There really wasn't. You know, and you can tell too, it's not because I'm offended by the subject matter of this movie. You know, I know a lot of people do that. They take the subject matter of a movie, like, say, a Serbian film. And they're like, this is absolutely disposable garbage. It shouldn't be viewed. The people who made the movie should be arrested. Blah, 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 blah. This movie is despicable trash. That's not how I am. And that's definitely not how I am with this movie. It was disturbing. And that was actually one of my positives of the movie. Like I was saying, like it's a disturbing movie. And that is a positive. That's what I was going into it expecting. That's what I wanted out of this movie. But the thing about it is unfortunately, it's just so boring. It is a very genuinely boring film. And with a film with subject matter as taboo as Salo, I don't know, as Salo's is, for a film with that kind of subject matter to be boring is pretty interesting. They somehow managed to find some of the most depraved, disgusting things and make them boring. Because they really just focus in on a few things. You know, they have... This movie is split up into 3 different parts, which are supposed to be kind of... I don't know how to say it, kind of representative, I guess, of the 3 circles of hell in Dante's Inferno. And well, that's not a terrible idea. All I'm saying is I don't think the circle of shit is a circle in hell. At least I hope it's not. It is in this movie, though, and which is why I said earlier, that's a whole third of this movie. The haha, they eat poop thing. That is a third of this film. It blows my mind how they could manage to take subject matter like this and just be like, we're gonna repeat this so often and so much that we just kind of desensitize you to it, to where you're like, yep, that's happening again. Oh, well, that sucks for those guys, those people. And another thing, it's not entirely because they desensitize you to it. There's a big chunk of it has to do with either the acting or the direction. I'm not sure how to make the distinction there, because it was definitely the actors, but I don't know that it was the actors' fault. But they were all very wooden. Most of the characters, they didn't have... They really didn't have personalities, you know, and the way they didn't have personalities, which has to do more with the writing, but they also weren't even portrayed as being very human. Either on the victim side of things, either they were emotionless robots, which is a very strange thing. You know, they weren't very they weren't very put off when they start getting abducted. You know, like in this movie, they don't seem very scared about the fact that, oh, I don't know, they've been abducted by high-class fascists. They seem very, let's go along with this. You know, like there's a scene in the beginning of this film after they abduct a couple of the guys where they're going through the people in a line, and they come across two guys that they I guess strike their fancy, and they're like, okay, take your pants off. And they don't have any kind of reaction other than, alright, I'll take my pants off. You know, you ask nicely. You know, they don't have a reaction like, what? What are you going to do with us? What are we here for? It's more of like a, oh, shit, man, if you're okay with it, I am. And it's so dumb. It's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. None. It makes no damn sense why these characters don't seem concerned about what's going to happen once it starts happening. They don't seem overly concerned with what's happening currently. Some of them even seem to be enjoying themselves. I don't get it. At least the ones that start to seem to be enjoying themselves. There's one guy in particular who, like, you'll see a smile on his face every once in a while, and he'll, like, be a little more enthusiastic to go along with it than the others. But I mean, these people are robots. They either have no emotion or they have all the emotion. There are like two modes for these people in this movie, and it's completely ridiculous. And then as far as the villains go, the villains have zero character. What's the villains' motivation? Oh, they're bad guys. Right. No, but what's their motivation? Like, I understand they're bad guys, but like, what drive? Oh, they're bad guys. That's it? Well, yeah, no, I mean, there's also they're bad guys. You know, they're bad guys. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is that they're bad guys. Brilliant writing. Brilliant. They're also very one note. The I think it's three male villains. All three of them are very nihilistic. There's a clear kind of ideal in their head where, like, human life doesn't matter, every, decency doesn't matter. They outright state that they are rejecting God, that they don't, no mention of any religious practices are to be uttered. And it's just, they're all so utterly in one direction. They don't have anything else to them. They're all just evil nihilists for the sake of being evil nihilists because, nihilistic evil things. That's what the villains are in this movie. And then there's the female villains, which it's funny because if you read the case of Salo, it says that there are 3 villains or 4 villains, or some shit like that. I guess it doesn't count the women as villains, but I'd say they're pretty villainous. I'd say they're pretty villainous, and they're complicit in this. So, you know, yeah. More than that. More than 3 villains. But like I said, the male villains are like just nihilistic bad guys. That's her whole spiel. And then the women are just bad guy storytellers, and one of them plays instruments. I don't know, man. One of them plays the piano and an accordion. And then the other 2 tell really gross sexual stories. That's all there is to their characters. And everyone has an over-enthusiastic outlook on buttocks. That's mostly what this movie is. I don't know, man. Like, especially it's just the characters, man. The friggin' characters. You know what? One character's whole motivation, their whole existence, whole reason for being, is to tell you about the absolute delicacy, the wonderful culinary, low key culinary masterpiece that is human fecal matter. Like, that's her whole everything in life. That is just her motivation to get up every morning. And then the other one, I don't even remember what the other one's stories were. They were sexual in nature, but they were more normal, I guess, at least comparatively. But these characters suck. I'm sorry, not sorry, but they really freaking do. And then one of the characters, this movie was made in 1976, so I'm gonna spoil a thing. I won't necessarily say which character it was that did this, so as to not spoil that for you if you haven't seen it yet and you really wish to put yourself through watching it. One of the characters throws herself out a window, and I guess we're kind of led to believe that she's sick of the depravity, and that's why she did it. That's why she jumped out the window. But beyond, actually, we aren't really led to believe that. That's just the only thing I can come up with. It's the only reasonable explanation I have as to why she jumped out that window. That's it. But it was one of the... What's weird to me is it wasn't one of the victims. It was one of the people participating in it. Which, I mean, in which case, wouldn't you think, oh, I don't know, you could walk out the front door? Like, if you were sick of being around that every day, don't you think you maybe could have, left? Instead of jumping out the window. There's so much unstated stuff. Like, could they not leave? Because if so, that wasn't stated. Why are they there in the first place? Why are they doing this? I think I've gathered through, like, reading things and hearing about it, it's because it was like the last days of the war or whatever, and they knew that they were going to be charged and captured, and so they wanted to be as depraved as they could for what little time they had left or whatever. The movie, however, from my memory, doesn't feel the need to explain any of this to you. I know that because, like I said, I've seen like YouTube videos on this, and that's pretty much it. I read some IMDb trivia, stuff like that. So that's how I know that. This movie does a very poor job of explaining things. It does a very poor job of character development. It does a very poor job of characters in general, just having them. Because they aren't really characters. And then, of course, some things in this movie that aren't supposed to be funny come across as comedic. Which sounds really fucked for me to say. But it's kind of true. It's kind of true. Like, if you watch this movie, you can't watch like a 10-minute monologue of someone explaining how wonderful feces in your soup is. Which doesn't happen, but without either going, what is this bitch babbling about? Like, what? You're either going to be annoyed by it, or you're going to burst out into maniacal laughter. One of the two. I was a mixture of both. And then there was this other guy that was, like, obsessed with anus. That was his whole shtick. This is the whole thing. Yep. That's, what a character there. And the guy had a lazy eye, too. Guy looked funny. Like, you know, he had a lazy eye, and he spoke kind of funny. Like, he just looked like he belonged there. Actually, low-key, he looked like he belonged driving a white van. But that's about all there is to the characters. They have their shticks. All the victims are the same person. There really is no diversity among these victims as far as personality goes. At times, this movie comes across as try-hard, you know, because, I mean, again, their whole shtick is like, you know, let's be as mean and as ruthless as possible, and so, in the process of that becomes the movie's whole shtick, and it's like, feeling a little try-hard here, guys, feeling a little edgelord, and it just doesn't come across as great. I think I've already said this. The movie's kind of boring. It's very boring, very repetitive. I understand why it's repetitive, because it's supposed to be these 120 days where, you know, all this nasty stuff was happening. I kind of have a problem with that, too. Why is it called 120 days? Because the thing is, like, why did it only depict the 120 days? Because most of the characters end up dying. But, like, there's still some alive in the end of the movie. But we don't really get to see what happens with them. Fuck it. The movie was made in 1976. Alright? Calm your panties. I don't get it. I don't get this movie. I don't really necessarily get how it's so freaking infamous. I mean, I guess I kind of get it, but I kind of get it, but I don't really get it. This is not my movie, for sure. You will not find me shouting from the mountaintops how much of a masterpiece Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom is. It just won't happen. If you want to watch an extreme horror film, I suggest you watch something else, frankly. if you want to go ahead and watch this movie, it's fine. For me, there is kind of a novelty of being able to be like, oh yeah, I've seen, say, Salo, 120 Days of Sodom. I've seen that movie. Like, there's a bit of a novelty in being able to say that you've seen these really disturbing, depraved movies. But other than that, this movie isn't really all that worth the watch, in my opinion. I don't know. I guess it's not terrible. It did push the envelope for the time. I will say that. It definitely pressed the envelope. It did a lot of things that you really weren't supposed to be doing in 1976. A lot of things that are extreme even by today's standards, which is why the movie is still very infamous for, being a very disturbing movie. But, at the end of the day, I'm not huge on this film. I think I'm going to give it about a 7 out of 10. And the only reason it's that high is because I do feel strange giving it anything lower than a 7, given kind of how historic this movie is, how infamous it is. And it's not a technically bad movie. Like, I can't give this movie, I can't give it much lower than a 7, like on a technical level, and but if we're going by my rating, by my personal rating, this would be about a 4, maybe a 5. I do not like this movie, really. Which is disappointing. Like I say, if you want to watch a disturbing movie, just watch something else. Martyrs, High Tension, Cannibal Holocaust, Inside, which I even have some problems of my own with the movie Inside, but I think Inside is better than this. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre leagues better than this. I mean, it's just not a fantastic movie, even though a lot of the complaints I have with this movie I could technically have with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just doesn't bother me as much there, which is an unfair thing to say, but it's true. So that'll be it, guys. I'm gonna try to get, I don't know, another video or 2 recorded tonight, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how things go. Until next time.